Hi, and welcome to Voices of Esalen. I'm your host, Sam Stern. I'm joined today by my partner, Candace Fording. We had the privilege of speaking to today's guest, Paula Shaw, leader of a legendary and somewhat mysterious Esalen workshop called the Max. Taking the Max, which is described as an acting workshop, but in fact goes much deeper than that, is somewhat of a rite of passage around the Esalen Institute. So we got Paula on the phone and did our best to deconstruct and demystify the magic of the Max. And in doing so, we got into her background, her history with Est, her experiences with the Actors Theater in New York City. And Paula is a very sweet, very intelligent, very deep person who has a lot of wisdom to impart, and I think you'll very much enjoy going on this ride with her. So with no further ado, here's our conversation with Paula Shaw.
Welcome to Voices of Esalen. I'm here, and Candace is here.
Hello, Paula.
Hi, Candace.
Nice to talk to you today.
Same here.
So, Paula, where are we talking to? Where are you today?
I am actually on the patio outside of my little condo in Vancouver, British Columbia. I was starting to say it's a beautiful sunny day, which in Vancouver, well, I can't say that it's unusual. It used to be unusual, but there seems to be more sun in recent times. And, people just glory in the sun up here. They're just elated when it's sunny.
Well, great, good. There's a couple of intentions that I have with this interview, and I think you're very well known in the Esalen community and beyond for the work that you've done with a workshop called the Max, which has inspired a lot of growth with its participants and almost a lot of legend within the community. So I wanted to get into that with you, but before, I thought we might explore a bit of your personal history, and you could bring me through your life story a little bit.
Okay. Well, where would you like me to start?
How about at the beginning, at childhood?
Well, okay. I was born in the Bronx, New York, and grew up there, and I was a very good student. I also interested in acting in high school, and I used to go to New York University before they had women in the Bronx, and the professor acting, the theater department, was very interested in using me in the shows, and I always got the leads. From the age of 15, I started playing the leads in the shows at NYU. And, of course, I was also famous in my high school for reading the Bible at assembly. So there was my public exposure, was reading passages from the Bible to begin the session at high school. But I used to travel over to NYU, used to take the bus over there, and I had a photographic memory. So I got these large roles in shows, and I could remember a 3-act play, lead in a 3-act play, which I learned on the bus going over. And I did that, from the age of 15 to 17, when I went off to Bard College in upstate New York. I got a full scholarship to Bard, which was just a fabulous liberal arts college. Small at the time, 200 students, and I was a drama major. And again, I played leads there, but I got an excellent liberal education in all areas, except math and science. Although I was good in math and science in high school at that time, Bard did not have a full rich department in those areas. And I graduated and came back to New York City in the 60s, and I right away got work off Broadway. It was a great time to be in New York in the early 60s, and did all kinds of crazy stuff. Oh, my God, there was this shows in the Theater of the Ridiculous. It was a show called Gorilla Queen, and I got to play Karma Miranda. And the gorilla, would turn away from the audience and pee on stage, which was a shocker. It looked like he was peeing into a bottle. But, this stuff was really wild. Ronnie Tavell was the writer. And they were just, it was just wonderful. We did all kinds of things. As a matter of fact, the first professional play I did was from James K. Baxter, who was a New Zealand poet laureate of New Zealand. And I played a half Maori young woman in this play, The Wide Open Cage. Studied the culture of New Zealand. I've never been there, but I knew all about it. I did a lot of stuff. We did The Legend of Charlie Parker, the musician, which was kind of an eclectic play about the life of Charlie Parker. There were many, many kinds of things, and there were a lot of people in the village starting out. The mamas and the papas. Richard Pryor was down there at the Cafe Wah. Woody Allen was playing next door at the Bitter End. I was at the Bleecker Street Theater doing my show. I even got to know some of the beats, Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg, and they took me to parties with the Upper East Side elite, where we listened to little quartets and little old people. Oscar Levant or Oscar Hammerstein would welcome the beats, and I just kind of came along for the ride, and it was a wondrous time to be there. I went to Provincetown for a couple of summers and played. I was the winning pitcher for the Sculptors Against the Painters, and I knew how to tell jokes. So the famous painter Franz Klein used to say, "Tell them, this joke, that joke." I told great jokes, especially Jewish jokes. So anyway, I had a fine time going to the village, and then I went to college, and it was only 100 miles out of New York City, so I used to come back on weekends a lot. And then I got into, I met a man, and we had a summer theater in Ellenville, New York, and we just did, all the summer shows, the summer stock shows, a lot of comedies and musicals, and came back to New York. And eventually I did a show in the late 60s, which was actually groundbreaking show. It was called Geese. It was 2 one-act plays, and it had happy endings for gay couples. And it was right around the time of the Sheridan Square riots, the Stonewall riots. And so we used to have seminars after the show where people came from all over the world to discuss the subject of nudity on stage. That was sort of, I would say, my entree into leading seminars, because I would lead those things. And I met incredible people like Tennessee Williams and goodness, some of the names elude me, but famous names, Ravi Shankar and the people from all over the world that were famous, and famous people from Hollywood, Shirley MacLaine, and anyway, I did that, and then the show came to Los Angeles. And, I was advised to stay in New York because I had a theater career going, but I was not going to be left out. The cast of the shows first went to San Francisco and then to L.A., and I came with the show. And so, once I got to L.A. and I was exposed to the wide open spaces, there was no putting me back in the box of New York City, where I lived in a rent-control apartment when you didn't know if it was day or night inside. I just loved L.A., so I was there, and I started to get some work in TV, but I don't know that I was ever really a TV film actress. I think I was more of a theater actress, although I did start getting work. But then what happened in the mid-'70s, I was kind of floundering there. It's a place you can get lost easily in LA. New York is not. You get on the treadmill, you just keep going. But I took the EST training in the mid-'70s, and that was, for me, like for a lot of people, really opening transformational experience. I was blown away by it. I would describe it to me as Eastern philosophy for Western minds. Werner Erhard, who was the founder of EST, had spent a lot of time in the East, and I think he was very involved in Zen, and he brought Swami Muktananda to the United States. And I got very involved in that, and I was amazed at the work that was done there on the leaders. And I said, wow, they were heroes to me and heroines. And I said, I want to learn to do what they do. There was, my God, at the time that I went, there was like 300 people and one trainer. And what they did, they introduced data, and they did exercises. Close your eyes, kind of go into your experience and recall a time when, blah, 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 blah. And they bring up, emotional times in your life when you were wounded or whatever, emotionally, and work through that stuff. And, people would volunteer to get up and interact with the trainers. And I was amazed at how they interacted with people. And also the data was particularly impressive because it seems to me that they would kind of lead you down every path you ever took to try to figure out life, what it's all about, and only to hit a wall when you found out that didn't get you anywhere, kind of blow your mind. They started, by the way, with the agreements, took a whole day of sorting out the agreements of the training, and people got to see how lousy our integrity was. We'd make agreements, then we'd break them. And so you got the fact that life didn't work when you went against the agreements. You had to agree to certain things to be able to do the training. So for instance, when they said, people, you can't leave the room except at the breaks. Well, it's not that they didn't keep you from going to the bathroom. You have to go, you have to go. But they made you look, when people got uncomfortable, they'd want to leave the room. And that's why they wanted to leave the room. They got people to look and stop and see that's why they were falling asleep inside the room, and that's why they were trying to leave. They used to do an exercise at the end of the training. They used to say, okay, so did you get it? And, some of us, I kind of saw myself as a car that was malfunctioning. I kept kicking it, And what are you kicking this car for? You're the driver. You're not the car. What are you kicking it? So so they would say, so did you get it? And people would say, yeah, I got it. Except the people that said, no, I didn't get it. And they go around and have somebody stand up and say, okay, did you get that you didn't get it? And they say, yeah, I got that I didn't get it. And they say, great, you got it. They say, no, I still didn't get it. So they say, did you get that you didn't get that you didn't get it? Yeah, you got it. It was so funny. I mean, people were falling on the ground because it blew. Because what you really got to see was that who you were was outside of all of that. Anyway, I loved it, and I walked around for 5 weeks out of really kind of. I felt like I was free, and I hung around there for 6 years, 7 years. I became what they call a guest seminar leader, in which, I told other people about the training, and we had meetings. And I was very good at it because I was not one to try to pressure people into taking the training. I hated that aspect of it. But I got to play with people to just see if they really wanted to do it. But for them to look at their considerations about it. Well, yeah, I can't afford it. I said, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that ring on your finger. What did that set you back? Oh, $3,000. Oh, well, the training at that time was like $250. I said, well, you know what? That ring is a lot more valuable than your life. I see why you would pay that for the ring, but not to take the training. But only if they showed interest in it. Because I knew that people were scared of it. They were scared to take a look. Because in order to take a look, you had to be willing to look at the fact that, you had a set construct to your life, and probably a large part of it didn't work. It just didn't work. But you'd rather the safety and the comfort of your belief systems, even if you were miserable, and limited, then, take a look at getting outside of it. And taking, from the perspective of what is really true and what isn't true, not that what you've been told or what you believe or what you're conditioned. So anyway, that had a profound influence on my life, and I hung around there. Meanwhile, I was an actress in Los Angeles, and I started to get work. At the same time I was doing these seminars, I was actually doing them for free. I was leading them for free. And people say, oh, what a sucker you are. You work for them, all those hours a week for free. I said, you know what? It was like my university of training, personal awareness training, and also of leadership training. And I assisted around there. I mean, I was, it was like a Zen training. You do what they say, whether you feel they're right or wrong. You just get off it and do it, whatever it is, whether it's clean toilets or write things on the board. And I just saw amazing things happen. The notion that no one's out there, that I remember Werner saying, that what you see in the world is a reflection of your own reality. So he said it's kind of like standing, we're all waiting for things to come to us before we initiate something. He said it's like standing in front of a huge mountain and shouting out, you first! And back comes your echo, you first, you first, you first, and that struck me very strongly, that I'd been standing there saying you first to the universe, and all I was getting back was, not me first, a lot of things like that. I remember magic was kind of like, sometimes I'd get on the phone and, to call people who come to the seminars to see if they were interested in enrolling the training. And I didn't, and I'd call, and then maybe for 9 calls, nobody was home. And I spoke to my supervisor. I said, nobody's home. And he said, well, are you home? I said, what do you mean? He said, what's going on? Oh, well, I don't want to be here, and I'm hungry, and I want to go home, and I want to see my boyfriend, and I'm tired, and I don't think anybody's going to be interested anyway. And he kept asking, and finally, he said, is anything else? I said, no, that's it. That's all of it. He said, great, back on the phone. I'd get back on the phone, and I swear to God, the next 9 people were home, answered the phone, and a number of them would, be interested in enrolling in training. So there were so many examples like that, of playing at that level and finding out how reality reflected me and where I was at. So I did that for quite a while. At the same time, I became a member of the Actors Studio, the famous, Lee Strasberg's Actors Studio. And I also got involved in an improvisational theater group for a number of years, wonderful Synergy Trust, and learned that work, and that was great. And we did shows from scratch. And I started teaching open workshops there. And I was also starting to teach acting classes. I became an acting teacher in Los Angeles. And I was doing work scenes at the studio and projects at the Actors Studio. And so all that was going on. And then a man named Dan Fossey had started a workshop in New York, a weekend workshop called The Mastery, and for actors and other creative artists, but mainly actors. And long story short, I met him at a EST conference, and he invited me to take it in L.A. because he was coming out to do it in L.A., to come as his guest. And I took it, and he said, great, you can lead it. And he said, with the background that we have. Now, format-wise and content-wise, it was very different than the S training, very different. It's an acting workshop. However, a lot of what I learned in terms of leadership, was the kind of training that he and I had. So, he started that, and the purpose of that was, you are the source of your own creativity, was the purpose of that workshop. And he had something called the Actors Institute in New York, and I and a couple of other people ran the Actors Institute in Los Angeles, along, by the way, with Ted Danson, the actor, and his wife at that time. And so a lot of well-known actors took the workshop at that time, and we did it. But it was done as a weekend. It was a 35-hour weekend, which started Friday night in the evening and went to Sunday night, and they were very late hours, like Friday and Saturday, literally till 3, 4 in the morning, sometimes later.
So this is like an early version of the Max that you're describing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started that. I was still leading EST graduate seminars from, I was leading those from about 76 till about 82. And the mastery came out to Los Angeles about 78, 79. And I started leading them in L.A. He would come out too, but then I was the first one in L.A. to start leading them. And I traveled around the country to places like, Houston, Dallas, New Orleans, to lead them up in, San Luis Obispo. Anyway, I did that, and then what happened was, there was an Actors Institute in England, in London, where the mastery had been done. And a couple of people went over to Findhorn in Scotland and led the mastery, and apparently it had a big impact there, and it, a woman, as a matter of fact, who had been at Findhorn, who left Findhorn, came to Esalen. She, like a number of people, left Findhorn to go elsewhere and create whatever they were going to create. She came to Esalen and headed the cabins department. And her name was, she was Dutch, a Dutch lady named Sophia Schweitzer. And she and Alan Mayfield, who has been in and around Esalen for a long time, who's a mover and shaker, she called New York, and New York gave her my number in L.A., and she called me up and said she wanted to bring the workshop to Esalen. And she said, "Oh, Paula, my name is Sophia Schweitzer. I did this mastery in Findhorn, and I need to bring it to Esalen. They need this workshop. Too much massage." So that's what she said. I'll never forget. That conversation I will never forget. And so I said, sure. And, I came up to Esalen with a couple of people, and she and Alan, who hadn't done it, she who'd done it in Findhorn, we did it as a weekend. They enrolled 30 staff. This was in February of 1988. There were still some people around who were in that first mastery. And boy, oh boy, at first they were very rebellious. It did not fit the format of other workshops at Esalen. First of all, you had to be on time. That's number one. They did not like that at all. And then they had to sit on chairs that were lined up precisely in front of a stage. We set up a stage. And there were pads and pens set up formally underneath the chairs. And the workshop, which, as you know, is a very structured workshop. I mean, you never know what's going to happen in there, but it's a very structured workshop. And there are sections of it, and there are rules and guidelines about what each section is. And then I'm looking back, I say, my God, how did I survive that? But I did, and I, was happy to be there and happy to, hold the fort and to fight with people when they wanted to fight, which they did, some more than others. But they would say, look at you, look in your little uniform. I don't know what I wore, a mini skirt or something, whatever you wore in 19. I was not dressed like them. They said, you look like you're in uniform. You could work at Disneyland. I said, I look like I'm in uniform? Look at yourselves. And your tie-dye and your muumuus. You haven't been shopping since 1963. You're fucking stuff. So, my God, we got into it.
I think it's possible that some people who are listening to this program don't know exactly what the Max is, and I know ostensibly it's an acting workshop. I wonder if it would be possible for you to attempt to kind of explain what goes on What is
sure.
the MAC?
I'm happy
so
to.
Notorious?
Well, you know what? People seem to not want to tell people what goes on in there. I'll tell you. I don't care because it doesn't matter. You know, it's like describing a strawberry, but when you eat it, it's entirely different than any description of it. It's an experiential workshop. So I'm happy to describe it. By the way, just so you know, I did it as a weekend for a couple of 3 years where just staff took it until people around Esalen who were in other courses said, you know, they saw the kind of excitement and aliveness. They said, what are they doing over there? I want to do what they're doing. And Nancy said, can you make this into a 5-day format? Because it was 35 hours. I said, sure I can. That's when it evolved into the max. So obviously there were things that were changed. And I started doing it that way. Now, I have a number of ways to describe the purpose of it. I say it's about discovering yourself beyond who you know yourself to be. You know, it's about really opening up the parameters of who you think you are, of stretching the container of your experience so that you are a lot larger. You get to experience a lot deeper and broader and larger than you have thus, have so far experienced. A lot of stuff obviously comes up from your past that you get to look at, and other people's too. So it's done in a format in which people get up on stage. You know, as I say, the chairs are set up. The first day we call is about getting here. And it's about what we call presencing yourself. And how you do that is you get up in front of the room. You make a connection. It's important that you make an eye connection because you can't do it with your eyes closed and you can't do it just looking around. You need to be connected. So as you connect, you start to look at what's real. And what's real is not just the thoughts swimming around your head, what you think or what you feel. It's what's real is actually in the moment what you're experiencing, which means your body sensations for one thing. And most of us are not even, we're asleep when it comes to identifying. So rather than say, oh, I'm feeling tired. Well, what does that mean? Where in your body do you feel tired? Oh, well, there's a sinking in my chest. Okay, breathe into it. Have people breathe into. Or eventually, I feel, there's some sadness. What do you mean sadness? Where? Oh, in my chest. What's there? It's heavy. And then breathe into it. Or I feel scared. What do you mean? What's that? Oh, where do you feel scared? Well, my throat is tightening. Breathe into the tightening. Or my legs are shaking. Where is it shaking? My knees. Breathe into it. And as you stay connected with your eyes and breathe into the areas that you're actually the body sensations that are there, you start waking up to how much is going on in your body at every given moment that you're not even aware of. That you're off in your head in some story, moment to moment, some narration of who you think you are or what's going on that is repetitive and that keeps you stuck. Because actors, of course it's not why it's an acting workshop, but actors have got to be able to be connected on a deeper level, connected emotionally, connected so that what they do is accessing their humanity, accessing their human experience so that they're able to portray whatever it is they want to portray, which characters who have deep experiences of things like grief and despair and loss and humiliation and whatever all else actors have to portray. You can't fake it anymore. It's not, back when they used to do that, it's not what we call presentational acting. It's experiential acting. And, that came in very strongly. Marlon Brando was the epitome of that, I would say. Montgomery Clift started it, James Dean. It's not that stylized. I mean, they were always good actors, don't get me wrong. There always were the James Cagneys and the Humphrey Bogarts and people who seemed real, the Ingrid Bergmans. But there were a lot of people who represented human experience rather than actually experienced it and were able to communicate it and self-express it. So that was, as I say, the original purpose of the workshop was for actors to open up so that they'd be conversant with themselves on all these levels. So anyway, that's what we do the first day. We say we present ourselves. We do emotional exercises in there. As you know, we do, people bring performance pieces, brief, like 1 to 3 minutes. And the purpose of that is communication, right? Can you communicate? Can you self-express and communicate a song or a poem or a monologue or something you wrote, And what happens, people come thinking that it's important, and I ask people to bring a memorized piece. It's very important that people do their best to memorize the piece. And if you forget it, well, my goodness, what a wonderful thing to be able to experience what happens when you do. Everybody's so terrified. So many people won't go in front of other people and won't get up because they're so afraid of making a fool of themselves and short-circuiting, of turning red and having their mind short-circuit. And if that happens, you discover what you can do and how you can actually be in that space, that you won't die. You will survive it. You can breathe through it. You can recover yourself. So the workshop, again, is about one of the things is going beyond your standards, your crummy standards that weren't even devised by you, that you were told never make a fool of yourself. You have to look good. You can't be embarrassed. You have to keep it together. Mainly it's about staying in control. So the workshop is a safe place to take a risk. And you always say you're not going to be brilliant. You're not going to be successful unless you're willing to fail. You're going to be brilliant unless you're willing to be lousy. We know that people that play a big game have often failed, have often fallen on their faces and got up and kept going. So, as you know, that's some of what goes on in there. There's a lot. There's work that people do in groups creatively, eventually, and people do, as you know, assignments. So on the breaks, people are often doing some kind of acting assignment. And it might have to do with what it is they're afraid to play with, or it might have to do with what they do already, but they haven't even been conscious that they do it, so that they get to do it on purpose, get to act the role of someone who's scared all the time, get to act the role of someone who's a people pleaser. They said, but I do that anyway. I said, yeah, but it runs you. You don't run it. And sometimes if you take it on as an assignment, you get behind it. Oh, I see. Now I can have it. I have choice. I think it's very important to have choice, so at least to know that you have a choice. By actually being able to notice what's going on with you, and make a choice about. Sometimes you can't. You're stuck in there, so you may as well take it on and do it, since it's doing you anyway.
Oh, that reminds me of something you said in the class that I always remembered was when you're, in a shopping center and you need to go somewhere, what do? You look at the map and you see where you are.
Right.
And then from where you are, you can go somewhere else. But you have to know where you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't get there from where you're not. You can't get there from there. You can only get there from here. So if like as I say in the mall, it says you are here. And once you know where you are, you can say, oh, I see. The Gap is upstairs on the second floor. I have to make a right, and like that.
One thing that struck me about your class was that, or the workshop, was that it almost created an alternate reality. There was this profound intimacy that was created within the walls of the room where we do these long hours, and I don't know, it felt like confessions were being made and people were shedding layers, and it seemed like there was almost this magical alchemical process that was going on in there, which made the workshop so unique to me.
Yes. Well, I jokingly say, and believe me, I'm not casting aspersions on this other kind of a workshop, But I often tell people this is not a pillow workshop, okay? You will not sit in a circle in pillows, revealing what's going on with you and talking about it and sharing about it and processing and comforting each other. Now, as I say, there's a lot of value in those. I have led pillow workshops, but this is something else. And there's something about theater, like when you go to a darkened theater and you look at what's going on stage and it can transform you because you see yourself up there. It's like you're watching something. You're watching your experience by watching other people's experience. And as you know, it's very raw. People are operating right on the edge.
How do you work? Do you work by intuition, or do you work with a set plan, like I want to open you up?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know anymore. I would say it I'm not a woo-woo person, but I'd say it comes through me. I'd say it is. I listen, and I just go with what comes up from what I see, what I experience. As you know, there may be, there are assignments that come up again in different workshops that people have had before, but they seem to come up from the moment. That's what I love about this workshop, is that it unfolds itself. I don't really worry about what I'm going to do with this person.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to emerge. And whether you call it intuition, whatever you call it, I do, and I say that's one of the things that people say, well, what do you get out of the workshop? And I'll say, trust the process. Because that's all there is in life. What else is there?
Right.
You either trust it or you don't. And in there, what happens, it's a very strong process that we're in. People, are into it very strongly, and there's a whole room full of people that are into it. So it creates a, very, very strong, again, without going into, woo descriptions, but it does create a very strong energetic field. And in that energetic field, things emerge that amaze me. I am amazed, which I guess is why I continue to be fascinated even after doing it for over 3 decades.
Right. And so I had the luxury of taking the Max in November of 2014, and then I later that year got to assist it and got to see you just work brilliantly with 2 different groups. And yeah, it was striking to me how the 2 different groups were so different, and yet some of the same themes were coming up for people.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you could say something about that, and also from the completion of doing that, I personally had some pretty huge breakthroughs creatively, and was able to write a play with Sam and perform it together, and that felt like such a huge accomplishment. And I was just wondering if other people report back to you different types of breakthroughs that they have after completing the Max, and what kind of things people say happen.
Yes, all the time. You can see and say for yourself what, if you can connect what opened up for you that propelled you into what happened creatively. I would say when you go to the, edgy places for yourself, dark places that open up, and suddenly light is shed on those dark places, and suddenly you find that you're not spending your time holding yourself together so tightly to protect yourself from hurt or pain or whatever you're protecting yourself from, or what other people think of you. When you take those kind of risks to be seen, or to step out into acting roles, you find, oh my God, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people in the assignments, I'm not an actor. Well, hello. Look what you just did. You know? I'm amazed by people, which leads me to believe that everybody, of course, has that capacity, whether we were shut down as little children, whatever happened, you know, there it is. And yeah, I mean, all kinds of, you know, to use that word, magical things open up for people in the areas, in every area of life, in relationships, and, you know, people are willing to take more risk. They're willing to step out and be vulnerable and speak up and you know, just go behave in areas in which they have hitherto not been able to do. You know, behave that way, and put themselves out to other people and in the world on an experiential level. Then, yeah, new, you know, like in Feldenkrais, they would say new synapses. You know, you go down a new avenue and go down synapses that weren't connected before or were asleep. And the max, you start going down new avenues in your experience, and it resonates in your chemistry, you know, and in your nervous system, in your brain connections. Absolutely. There's wiring that's rewired or just, you know, opened up, and new little sprouts, new little synapses grow, new little wires sprout out and connect to other wires.
You take risks, you know, become vulnerable, and you don't die, and maybe even something good or great happens because you take the risk and, you know, become vulnerable.
And you see that it works. You didn't die. Oh,
yeah,
maybe I could do that again.
Maybe even people clap and tell you you're wonderful.
Exactly. And you know, in there I keep talking about the system. There's nothing new in the system. You know, they say the bad news, they used to tell us by 5 it's all over. Now they're telling us by 1. The system is pretty well set in place, you know, the protection and the beliefs and the conditioning. And so, no longer is the system running the whole show. It can do its thing, but you're there watching, saying, I know what you're doing. I see you, you know. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We've done it that way, you know, so many times. How about we, you know, maybe not.
Yeah. So you're coming up on 30 years of teaching the Max at Esalen. I'm just wondering, how have you changed as a teacher? How have you perfected your art?
Well, you know, it's kind of changed me. I think that initially it was more confrontive, like there was that influence, because the trainers would sometimes would seem pretty harsh with people, pretty hard-nosed. And, you know, so at first, you know, what I'll say about it is I no longer do B&Es. You know what B&Es are? So I no longer break and enter. I don't have to. If people are willing and they want me to press them, I will. You will get what you need to get by everything that happens in there through you and through the other people, what you do with them and what you watch them to go through. I don't profess to know anymore what somebody should be doing in there or how they should be. Everybody has a process that I think is pretty sacred and perfect, and they go through what they have to go through, you know. And my job is to kind of just shepherd them through and guide them through, you know, and make sure everybody, you know, stays on board, you know. You know,
I'm imagining there's some people out there listening to this right now that are thinking, oh, I might want to take the Max. I mean, what would you say to somebody who might be on the fence about it?
Yeah. Well, you know, see if you're willing to take a risk. You know, it's funny, I just got a call a couple of days ago from a fellow who's been an accountant all his life, and started to get into how safe he's played life. And he looked at the Esalen catalog. A friend who's a psychologist told him he should go to Esalen. And of all the courses, he read the catalog. But he said, yours jumped out at me. I said, well, isn't that interesting? He said, yeah, there were a lot about learn to love yourself and this, that, and the other thing. He said, but yours, it did make my heart beat faster. And I said, well, I'm not telling you what to do. I would follow your instinct. And, if it does get your heart beating faster, well, there's some information coming from somewhere that's enlivening inside of you. Trust. What do you have to lose? You're not going to die in there. The system may tell you, oh, my God, I'll lose my mind. I'll go crazy. Whatever. No, we haven't lost one yet, in 30 years. And I doubt you'll have the distinction of being the first. But for sure, it will be scary. I always say, if you remember, I say I'm worried about people that are not anxious coming in, that aren't nervous. I said, what are they, crazy? Are they out of touch? Of course. If they're coming in to do something that's going to be this kind of a challenge that they've never done like this before, of course it's going to be scary. So I encourage them. I always tell Esalen, if there's somebody that's right on the edge and they really have a couple of questions and they really need to talk to me, say, if I get the answers to these questions, it will determine whether I enroll or not. I say, give him my number. I'll talk to him. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't try to, we used to do MS training, but I've long since passed the time where I try to enroll anybody. I'm not interested in trying to get people to take this workshop. I'm interested in people looking to see if they would really like to, if they're intrigued by it, if they want to step into it. That excites me, to see somebody willing to take the risk. Not me try to talk them into it. Not what I do anymore, if I ever did. There is a website, and it's called themaxwithpaulashaw.com. It has an interview actually with a fellow from Germany who produced it there for, and he had a business consulting, so he talks to me about it from a business standpoint. And by the way, we've had people from all walks of life, from business, had people from the military. You name it, somebody has come. The people that take it now are not actors, or at least that's not what they do for a living. They're all the people from every walk of life. It's no longer an acting, it's still an acting workshop, but it's for others, for people who just want to step out and want to get, be able to play a bigger game if they choose to, with themselves and others and in the world. I just want to be freer, want to be able to free up their self-expression. So they can look on there, and of course, as you know, they can look in the Esalen catalog. I do it now twice a year at Esalen. Pretty much it's been steadily, one right over Thanksgiving week in November and one in March. So they can, read about it there and be switched to their to the website, to the Max. And as I say, if they really want to get in touch with me, I'm available to talk to personally.
Well, we both highly recommend it. It gets my seal of approval.
Yes, mine too.
Well,
one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, thank you. It's so. I remember the two of you in there. I've been a witness for what's happened for you both. You are sort of my poster children, right? for what can happen when you take the Max. I'm proud of everything you've been doing with your lives, and I congratulate you in every way for the way your lives have expanded, and that you've been smart enough to do it in partnership too, to do a lot of it in partnership.
Oh, thank you, Paula. Thank you for your offering in this teaching, and it just feels like such an amazing offering you share with humanity, and with the people of Esalen. And just really grateful for you and all the positive change that happened because of this work.
Well, it's one of those things that makes my life worth living. I got to tell you, I feel blessed to have been guided to this work, because I know I was, and that I needed it myself, and I was led down this path. So I'm lucky to still be walking on it. Let me say that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Paula.
You're welcome. I'll see you next time around.
Today's episode of Voices of Esalen was produced in conjunction with Cheryl Franzel, Geraldine Hess, Lori Putnam, and Shannon Hudson. Special thanks today to Candace Isfording for co-hosting and to Ian Golden for technical support. Today's music is Graham Bowl with a track titled First New Day. You can check us out on the web at esalen.org, that's ESALEN, or visit us on iTunes and subscribe so you'll never miss an update. Thank you so much for your support. We'll talk to you soon.